the October Bedford Branch Royal Aeronautical Society lecture, and that's given by Arpad Szakal. Arpad's going to speak about how to future-proof your aviation career, the role of reskilling and upskilling. So that's something in this environment of COVID, which is incredibly relevant to many of us. Certainly, I've seen the need to do that with many of my friends and colleagues through various reasons, from pilots suffering the downturn in aviation to large major contracts being cancelled and having to change organizations. So I think, Arpad, your lecture is timely. And so without much more ado, I think I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bernard. And again, thank you for the opportunity to share with you tonight. It's certainly a topical subject. Fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people are basically being or having to reconsider what they do at the moment. So what I wanted to do today with the group is the following. I will do a quick introduction about myself, the firm that I'm with. Then we'll have a quick look at the employment landscape in the aviation industry. We'll talk about some of the soft skills, some of the skills that are really absolutely essential to have, in addition to the hard skills that you obviously bring to the table. We will talk about what upskilling, reskilling really actually means in reality. And I would, to be honest with you, I would really like to make this as an interactive session. I would not like to just monologue at you. If you have any questions, if you have anything that have been bothering you, you have an issue that you would like us to talk about, please let me know, because that's really the essence of this lecture. It's not for me to just monologue, but for you to ask anything that is of importance to you, basically. So, quick introduction. I'm part of an organization called Cormis Partners, which is a privately owned search firm. Executive search means that we're essentially mandated by organizations, not only aviation or aerospace organizations, to find individuals in the market, whether it's in the technical space, legal, finance, so it's across disciplines, and bring them into the business, onboard them into the business, and make sure that they are very effective from day one. So it's headhunting, essentially, what we do. It's quite an involved process, because we're doing a lot of market mapping, pipelining, succession planning in organizations. We don't only cover aerospace, it's energy, the broader infrastructure, and the industrial sectors that we do. In terms of myself, I've been in the industry for about 7 or 8 years now. Prior to my involvement with search and assessment, I was a lawyer, aviation lawyer, predominantly dealing with liability and also aircraft financing matters. And I do quite a bit of coaching as well, mainly on the career development, career planning side of things. So basically, those are the most important things to know about us or me. When it comes to global coverage, it's Europe, North and South America, and quite a bit in the Middle East as well. Basically, it's again mid to senior level roles that we typically handle in the aerospace, but also the logistics and freight cargo space as well. Wanted to really just give you a quick snapshot of obviously what's been happening over the past 18 months when it comes to the employment jobs side of things. No matter where you look, really, in terms of geography, it's been quite bleak. To be really honest with you, in terms of hiring activity, when it comes to the typical employers in the sector, like the airlines, the airports, the service providers, it's still more about firing than it is about hiring. Job postings have been really down. They are basically a little bit better than it was back in 2020, but still across the board, it's quite bleak. It's taking candidates a lot longer to find a role. Really lengthy recruitment processes. It can take anywhere from a month to all the way up to 6, 7, 8 months to land a role. The average number of applications that people make is really is around anywhere from 50 to 100 each. So it's it continues to be a struggle, and it really depends on what skills you have. Obviously, when it comes to anything digital, anything technical, anything engineering related, that's very sought after. But when it comes to legal or anything on the customer service side of things, airport operations, it's really still quite down. Simply because demand has evaporated. Basically, it's coming back, but when it comes to live roles, it's still not there. So what's sought after? What are the skills that employers are really looking for at the moment? Anything digital, like digital skills, digital transformation, financial skills, hardcore sort of financial turnaround, transformation, crisis management, simply because where we are today, it's all about leadership skills. Can you really get us out? From my experience, there are 3 types of individuals who get hired today. Those who bring in money, like those are the business development, sales people who really go out there and make it happen. The other type is, can you save us money? Any kind of improvements, efficiency improvements, supply chain improvement. And the third one is really the supply chain procurement professional. Basically, that's another field that we've seen picking up. The whole supply chain process is being reimagined at the moment. Huge issues, no matter where you look. So that's a discipline which is really sought after. So again, the key takeaways: businesses are still struggling. A lot of R&D programs have been capped or slashed altogether. Obviously, the future opportunities are very much in anything sustainability related, low carbon flight. A lot of smaller organizations, startups are popping up left, right, and center. By the way, not only here in Europe, but quite a bit in Asia. Singapore seems to be one of those brighter spots. And these startups tend to be organizations that are attacking the aviation industry's biggest challenges. What are those? Social distancing at airports, onboard the aircrafts, design issues, but also how do you really process travelers in the terminal, onboard the aircraft, touchless passenger journeys. The whole passenger journey is being reimagined at the moment. So those are the bright spots within commercial aviation. When it comes to really defense and telecommunications, satellites, that's where we are seeing most of the activity, because when it comes to defense budgets, they've not really been slashed. That's a really good bright spot when it comes to the broader aviation ecosystem. basically. So that's something to watch out for if you would like to change, or if you're having to reconsider your options at the moment. Again, just wanted to give you a quick snapshot. These are stats from IATA, how it looks like globally. Obviously, it's all about when it comes to commercial aviation. It's all about internal markets. You will see North America doing a little bit better. Asia Pacific, especially with China, internal traffic is getting back to maybe even 2019 levels. But when it comes to global proper intercontinental traffic, I mean, it's still very bleak. You can see it on the numbers in terms of revenues. It's really, the action is not where you might expect, which is the traditional sort of employers in the industry. So that's just a quick overview of what's happening in the wider industry. What I really wanted to focus on a little bit here, given the audience is very broad, I would imagine most of you are in the technical space or in the engineering space. I didn't really want to go into the nitty-gritty. I wanted to make it applicable to every one of you. And I think a good sort of topic to discuss is all the soft skills that employers, especially post-crisis, are looking for. So what do I mean by soft skills? These are skills that relate to the way you connect and the way you interact with others. These are things like emotional intelligence, adaptability, collaboration. Those are the things that you are being assessed for, no matter the seniority, no matter the sector that you are targeting. And very often, these soft skills are the ones that make or break whether you are going to be basically selected or not. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to hard skills, when it comes to education, when it comes to the number of years of experience that you bring to the table, that's going to be very similar. I mean, almost everyone is pretty much identical, because you have to have the qualifications to be considered for a role. But the ones that I would highlight is composure, really important. This is really your ability to keep your emotions in check. A lot of people have been through a lot over the past sort of 18 months in every single sense of the word. You can't be overly stressed. You can't appear to be emotionally not solid, because they will pick up on this on an interview, whether you are doing the interview on Zoom, Teams, or in person. You just can't bring a baggage, because it's going to be picked up on a virtual interview. Really easy to pick up on it, and in an in-person assessment as well. Other thing I wanted to highlight is gravitas. It's your ability to carry the are you a leadership material or you're not? Basically, can you bring people together with you? Can you align people around a certain agenda item? That's what gravitas means. It's, can you earn people's trust? That's critical. Again, no matter what role you are targeting, what is your job today, basically. Adaptability, I mean, that goes without saying. Things will never be the same again. Home working, can you work remotely, which is really tricky without having someone to keep an eye on you? Are you good at effective time management? Can you keep the lines of communications open? Are you productive on your own? I mean, basically, that's something that is really difficult to assess, but companies are looking for this, and really your ability to adapt to a team, to communicate well, is essential, basically. So the other one is resilience. That goes without saying. It's your ability to remain confident in the face of controversy and criticism. a lot of leaders, mid to senior level ones, are having to deal with unprecedented change, critical. The other one that I wanted to bring to your attention is awareness or resonance, which is your ability to read other people's signals and react appropriately to them. Basically, it's your ability to put yourself into the shoes of your interviewers and understand how they are feeling, how they are being impacted by all that is going on at the moment, because you need to be able to relate to them, to the hiring manager, to the business partner, whoever is hiring you or interviewing you. You need to be able to understand where they're coming from and articulate how you can help them, because you're essentially, even if you're working for a big business today, you are a service provider. You need to think of yourself as a business of one, and you really need to just make sure that you resonate with your audience. That's what I mean by that. Forward thinking. I mean, that's also absolutely critical these days. It's your ability to see and identify future trends. Basically, when you go into an interview, you're not only bringing bad news, you're basically saying, yeah, it's been difficult, but this is how we can turn the situation to our advantage, basically. And a lot of people, by the way, and a lot of organizations are taking COVID-19 as a good excuse to really just revamp their teams, get rid of old people, get new blood into the organization, and to get their teams to think differently, essentially. And this is what's happening in a lot of logistics businesses are doing this. A lot of cargo freight organizations are doing this left, right, and center. Although they've been impacted to varying degrees, they take the opportunity to just change guards. And one of the reasons they do that is to bring new thinking into the organization. So just bear that in mind. The other thing is humility, especially intellectual humility, is key. I mean, you're not going to be able to convince your interviewers that you've got all the answers to their issues. Don't act that you know it all. You are basically, it's very unlikely that you are going to be able to meet all their conditions or whatever the role is. But remember, you're not being hired to reinvent the wheel, but you are there to come on a journey with them and leverage your previous experience. So just I think the humility aspect is really, really key today. We can discuss it later. I think these are really the key ones that, again, no matter what your role is, these are the things that everyone is looking for at the moment. Wanted to give you really just a case study, if you would like. I've been dealing with, or I've been coaching a lot of pilots, commercial pilots, who are really having to essentially reinvent themselves. Many of them only had one, like an ATPL or not much else, basically. And what I've seen many commercial pilots or many senior technical people do is to go into program management, project management. If you think about the role of the pilot, it's the ultimate project manager. I mean, you're making sure that people get from A to B alive. So what a lot of them have been doing is getting additional certifications, qualifications. I don't suggest to anyone that you go and get yourself into an MBA program or an MSc program or a lengthy degree, because you might not see a return on investment in the short to medium term when it comes. It's also not a good time to get into debt. So think about it really. Again, what I've seen what would be a practical example of a pilot or a technical individual getting a project management certification, which can be gained within anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Some of them last a year, and really gaining practical experience alongside it. So basically, while you're studying, while you're gaining the certification, the qualification, you are trying to seek out ways, very often, voluntary capacity, to apply those skills. So a lot of people come to me, but I don't have any experience. I never worked on it. Basically, like I never really applied the skills that I've gained in my course or certification. Well, the best way to do it is to do it for free for a certain period of time. I'm not suggesting that you do it for a long time, but what worked well for others is essentially going out there. This is my situation. This is what I'm doing about it. How can I be of help to you on a freelance basis? A lot of people are developing portfolio careers at the moment. They have an anchor role, like flying. A lot of people are still flying or flying again. And they do something else above and beyond the day job because they know that being an engineer, a pilot, whatever it is, it's not going to cut it going forward. And that's why they're just thinking about it creatively. A really good way of doing this is thinking about your transferable skills. In the case of a pilot, for example, if you have a look, what do you have? What can you sell? It's the leadership skills. It's the fact that you are overseeing a group of people, very often up to 20 people. It's not like you're sitting behind a bulletproof door 24/7. I mean, it has a pre-flight, post-flight sort of aspect to the job, the flexibility, the adaptability, the fact that you are dealing with people constantly who you've never worked before, the complex problem solving, the math skills, even if you're an engineer, for example, I mean, that's something that you can take and work in a related field. For example, different mode of transportation, whether it's ship. I'm not advocating for that, but it's basically that you're leaving the industry. But you can very often use the communication skills, the multitasking skills, the team working, the collaboration. These are things, although soft skills, not hard skills, like I know this computer language, or I'm qualified to do this specific task, but these are things that you can take and apply in a completely different sector as well, basically. So a practical certification and effectively selling the softer elements or the softer aspects of your background, basically. So that worked quite effectively in a lot of different cases. So in terms of reskill, how do you use your time? So for example, if you're listening and if you're in between roles, I think a lot of people have trouble, like you can't be applying for jobs 24/7 because it's not going to really get you anywhere. You are going to burn out. It's boring after a while. And I personally believe you can only spend 2 or 3 hours on this every day, not more than that. So what are some of the other effective ways to use time? Reskilling, that means gaining an entirely new set of skills. It's about picking up a new skill for a new position. So for example, you're an aircraft technician. Well, got laid off. Basically, what do I do? You pick up a new, completely new set of skills. I think probably the best way to do it is focus on the skills that you already have and really pick out an industry, pick out new skills that are directly related to what you've been doing. So for example, as an aircraft technician, just pick up something that is, again, relevant, related. I'm not suggesting that you go into healthcare or social care or something irrelevant. It really needs to be something that you can build on. And again, focusing on portable skills, utilizing the technology. There are so many opportunities online where you can really degree Udemy that are free and are enabling people that are in between jobs to really just pick up new skills and effectively just transition from industry A to industry B. Also, the other way to do this is, especially when it comes to gaining leadership skills, because a lot of people want to go into management roles, especially senior people, mid to senior level people in a different industry. The best way to do that is, if you're still employed, is to seek out actively opportunities to lead a team, lead even just one or two individuals. Take advantage of any trainings that they provide, many project management qualifications, because these are really sought after. So, and don't forget about voluntary experience, because although it's very easy to overlook it, I mean, just because you didn't get paid for it, it doesn't mean that it's not valuable. I mean, it's sellable. You can go out there and interview with people and basically just say that, yeah, although I didn't do that as part of my day job, I went out and basically I pursued that leadership role with that nonprofit, and that's how I gained it, basically. So it's showing initiative, taking really like asking for more responsibility within your current employer. That's a really good way to gain new skills, really good way to gain leadership competencies, participate in teamwork. Even if you're an individual contributor or collaborator, you can try and cross-train with peers within your current organization. So really make sure that you don't expect that your university education or certification or whatever it is will fully train you. What employers are looking for today is practical, sort of tangible experience, basically. So freelancing would be a really good way. I mean, if you're not in employment now, that's a really good way to build up a portfolio of new skills, of new sort of tangible skills. The other way to do this is to do it as a consultant. Again, maybe initially doing it for free for a couple of weeks or a few, maybe even a month or two. And then once you have a few projects under your belt, you can go out there and basically charge for it. Basically, I'm not advocating that you are doing this free thing for a long time, but speaking from experience and speaking from other people's experience, it's a really good and effective way to get something under your belt, basically. Joining organizations, obviously, such as the Aeronautical Society, the UK Aviation Club, where you can really network, meet with like-minded people, and again, offer up your services and use all the opportunities to just add value. How can I basically just make your life easier? I think that's probably the best way to think about it. If you're looking for jobs, don't rely too heavily on job sites. This slide that I showed you earlier is from Aviation Job Search. That's probably one of the better websites to look at. Very few things are advertised at the moment. The reason why it's the case is because if companies would go out there and advertise for all of their open positions, they would be inundated with very often irrelevant CVs. So it's networking, picking up the phone, understanding who does what in the organizations that you are targeting, and really having these informational interviews where you are not asking for a job, but basically you are trying to gain insight how it is to work in that organization, what's the culture, what are the issues that they're facing, and how can you be a solution to the issues or the problems that they're facing. So it's having that initiative, having the resourcefulness that we talked about, thinking of yourself really as a business of one, and really just thinking about these soft skills, because again, hard skills, education, certifications and all that will not get you there. It's all these invisible stuff that I've been talking about, which will differentiate you in the market, which is insanely competitive at the moment. Basically, it's no matter where you look, it's still bleak, but there are signs of improvement. And IATA had a really good meeting last week. A lot of people turned up, which is in itself a good sign. And if things progress in the way they are progressing, I think we will see a lot more opportunities across the aviation supply chain. But again, it's defense, telecoms, the broader transformation, the broader transportation, not necessarily aviation, is where the action is at the moment. So if you're looking, that's where I would concentrate my efforts. So I think that's what I wanted to really monologue at you today. I think all I wanted to do is to give you a flavor as to what's happening today in the market, and generate some ideas and hopefully some questions as well. And would be really good to just address some of the questions, issues that you are facing at the moment, and in the remainder of the time that we have. So then I hope managed to say something new, something different that you haven't all knew previously, and yeah, would be very happy to engage with this group. So.
Excellent. Is it okay if I jump in now? Actually, I've got there's quite a few questions in the chat, so I'll,
yeah, of course.
I wrote the first one, so I thought I'd just
yeah,
take my advantage. How do you find, what is the best way to, or at least the way that companies best respond to demonstrating these soft skills in an application or an interview? Like what kind of the key things that they're really looking for? And then almost on the flip side of that, what are the red flags? What are the things where they'll see that and they'll immediately negatively respond to it? I can imagine there are potentially some behaviors that people do in interviews, over familiarity, like you know, certain personality traits that are sort of demonstrated that companies might sort of turn around and go, whoa, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. So so what are the kind of the positives and what are the negatives that you really want to steer away from?
When it comes to a written application, which is basically depending on your level, I think it's very often an online application form and all that. I mean, you can't really do an awful lot. It's very often uploading your CV, answering the questions. I mean, you can't really do anything. I think when it comes to really the interviewing stage, when it comes to really presenting yourself to a panel or one individual or hiring manager, it's giving practical examples. So very often it's the behavioral questions then that they screen individuals, no matter where you're applying. Behavioral interviews, you can pick them up by the way they are asked. So tell me about the time when you had to deal with a difficult team player. That obviously that assesses your leadership skills or team working skills. Tell me about the time when you had to deal with a difficult coworker. What did you do? How did you deal with that? How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with how do you make decisions when you've got limited amount of data available to you? I think what I suggest everyone who's preparing for an interview or in the middle of applications, do a career audit and think about yourself really again as a solution provider. Think about really like, what are the sort of key achievements that I can brag about in an interview, because it's basically, it's all about presenting yourself in the best possible light. Don't be too pushy. I think the humility that I was, I think here, the humility that I was talking about, I think that really needs to come across, because you shouldn't portray yourself as a jack of all trades, because that's not going to work. Tangible, practical examples. You need to back up everything, whether it's on your CV or in an interview. You need to back up everything with evidence. What do I mean by that? Numbers, digits, hard facts. If you manage the team, how big was the team? If you've managed the budget, how big was the budget? I mean, you need to give context to the interviewer, and you need to give context to the person that is assessing you, and you need to do that on a CV as well, which is tricky, because it shouldn't be more than 2 pages long and things like that. So it's, I hope I make sense there. But I think it's the more practical, concrete the examples that you can give, the better and the more convincing it is.
Yeah, no, definitely that makes a lot of sense. Like sort of going back to that idea of presenting yourself as a business, or almost like a product, you're providing a solution. That's kind of the thing that I imagine a person would like automatically do if they were almost reviewing like an Amazon product. You wouldn't just look at the description. You'd say, what are the reviews? You know, this many 5 stars. Here are, if you're looking at a piece of safety equipment, here are the specific things that prove to me that what this says it is, it actually is, but you're effectively doing it for yourself. I think, I suppose, there's definitely something that I hadn't really thought about it that way. So that's definitely been beneficial.
It's like, even if you're working for a big business, when you're out in the market, or when you're considering a transition or a change, you all of a sudden become your own you're the CEO or a business of one, basically. That's probably the best way to think of yourself, because essentially all this that we are talking about is branding, marketing, sales. These are sales techniques, basically, if you think about it that way. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Bernard, you've got a question.
First question was, has the move to online working changed leadership significantly?
Very significantly, and it's basically organizations are finding it really tricky to get back workers. Obviously, when it comes to operations, when it comes to airline operations, I mean, it's basically there's a certain degree of what's possible, what's not. But when it comes to office workers, across the board, it's been a challenge. I think it's burnout, motivation issues. How do you keep people engaged? I think how do you retain people within the business? I think those are the main issues that organizations are faced with at the moment, because I mean, teamwork over Zoom, I mean, it is certainly possible, and it's been working successfully to a certain extent. But we are seeing the limitations really, and face-to-face contact, people like looking after teams at various locations, plant managers not being able to see their teams in Mexico City or in Marseille or in Budapest or wherever. I mean, it had an impact, and it weakened some organizations in some sense, basically. So yeah, definitely a huge challenge, and I don't think an answer has been developed to this issue, to be honest with you.
That's very interesting that there doesn't appear to have been any answer or best practice that's developed since.
No, it really depends on the sector, the industry, the organization itself. obviously, when you're looking at the aviation sector, when it comes to let's have a look at the airline industry. I mean, obviously, there's a certain population there which can afford or can have the flexibility, of course, the office workers. But when it comes to the technical, the operational people, I mean, it's the air traffic controllers, the pilots. I mean, there are certain professions where it's obviously it's not possible to allow for that. But and also attracting the next generation, keeping the next generation, the Gen Z, engaged and motivated, really difficult, because you have to remember that there is now a generation who joined businesses at their kitchen desk, basically, or kitchen table, and they never met their co-workers. There are big gaps in their knowledge. They're not really adept to the ways organizations work. They've never attended a networking event. They're based in some cases in different countries, or at least different regions. So it's a host of issues that leaders have not had to even think of prior to March 2020 or February 2020. So I think I would not tell you the truth if I would say that yeah, all the issues have been solved and companies are succeeding when it comes to retention and attraction of new talent.
Fantastic. It's almost like we're part of a almost an 18-month experiment, and then also you've got the additional fact that, like, how do you breed company loyalty if someone's never really experienced being at the company? So another two questions, one from Neil and one from Winston. Neil, do you want to go?
Yes, thank you, Dan. I'm mentoring somebody who's at university studying international business, and one of the issues that I'm raising with them are social media posts and how it might reflect for future employers. Have you got any comments on how much research employers would do on a successful candidate, potential candidate?
They do a lot, and you really need to be very thoughtful about this. I mean, social media is not a bad thing, but but you really need to be very selective. I think when it comes to the one social media channel that you should be active on is LinkedIn. It's basically branding, it's marketing, it's establishing yourself as a thought leader. I mean, that's a really critical. Having a good profile is one thing, but then using the platform, I think it's absolutely critical. That's how you stand out. I really promote things like writing articles, short form articles, long form articles, being out there, really just letting your voice to be heard. I think that's absolutely great. I would suggest that the individual focuses on one platform. And that platform would be LinkedIn, because that's by far the most professional one. And you can't focus on many. I mean, you need to be on one good one, and LinkedIn happens to be one of those that is really is worth the effort. Facebook, Twitter, all the other ones, careful. Companies do a very thorough due diligence and check on all of those platforms. They use special search engines where your activity over the past few years, pictures, everything can come up. So, and it can derail your application very easily. I've seen, unfortunately, even at senior level, quite a lot of sad stories, basically.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I've been advising, but hearing you say it might carry a little bit more weight. Thank you very much.
No, focus really on LinkedIn. It's worth the effort. It's by far the best tool that we have to convince potential employers that we are different from the rest. Yeah.
I've just persuaded him to set up a LinkedIn profile, and
Yeah.
we're just working on that now. So
Very
that's
good.
perfect.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. So next question is from Winston. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Winston, and it's my first time here. My question is about applications of IT area softwares and all of that in the aerospace industry, particularly data analytics, artificial intelligence, and cloud computing. Because from what he said, like trying to build on the skills that you have at the moment and trying to see how you can get into other areas. So I would like to know, like the bridge between aerospace engineering and some of these IT courses.
Yeah. Have you done a course, or you're planning to do one, basically?
I was planning to do something related to data analytics or cloud computing.
Very key. I mean, in terms of, if we talk about hard skills, and thank you for the question, Vincent. I mean, maybe it's worth really going through the stuff. I mean, I mentioned some of these. Really, the critical skill. I mean, what you've mentioned, anything data related, anything analytics related, anything automation, anything that has to do with digitalization. Really sought after. I mean, if I would be advising or suggesting anyone to study anything, it would be that. I mean, you will never go astray with things like anything math related, anything artificial intelligence. I mean, with all the automation going on, there's a lot of startups, that are, again, what I mentioned, they are popping up left, right, and center, quite a lot of them in the UK as well. It's definitely an avenue that, and if you want to do a course in it, by all means, this is a skill set. Even if you can't get from A to B in aviation or in the broader aerospace market, which I would be quite surprised, because these are the exact skills that organizations are looking for, left, right, and center. You can still use it. Again, not advocating that you do that in other sectors, in technology, in again, broader transportation related sectors. Because if you think about it, aviation's biggest challengers or competitors when it comes to the workforce that it could potentially attract are not the airlines or the shipping industry or the logistics or supply chain or whatever. It's the Amazons of the world, it's the Googles, it's all those high-tech firms who are really active, by the way, in transportation as well, in urban mobility, in eVTOL, in the eVTOL space. I mean, that's where the action is when it comes to really hiring, when it comes to really like needing people. So automation, AI, huge and worth the cost and the time and the money and all that, basically, to go into it. Yeah. For the next however many years, basically, that's what we are seeing.
It does seem that like AI is actually really truly transformational, and we haven't really seen the limits of it yet. There's a very broad. But then also there's also the issue of that there are not a lot of intelligent customers for those services too. So I imagine that's something that you could also brand yourself as someone who's able to understand these technologies and understand how they're being applied, not just be able to practically implement it.
Yeah.
I think, who's the next question? I think the next question is Bernard again.
Yes, I think during the presentation I heard that defense was one of those areas which almost felt like it was growing, or it was still recruiting. Is there any idea of how that has been in relation to how that area or that sector of the industry has been performing or has gone before?
Yeah, I mean, defense budgets have not decreased. and there have been quite a lot of investment in especially surveillance, sort of military equipment manufacturers. I mean, they've been quite active, really, and the demand has not abated. I think it's if you look at the Middle East, if you look at at Europe, when it comes to the best performing part of Airbus, when it comes to the best performing part of Boeing, most of these OEMs, it typically has been on the defense side of things. But also, I would like to mention the satellite space companies like SES in Luxembourg. They've been performing really well. I think, again, the broader telecommunication, I'm not talking about the military sector now, but the civilian use of telecoms satellites, again, it's a growth market. There's need for both technical, finance, and also even legal sort of skill sets there. That's what head of contract management would be one of the examples that I worked on quite recently for a satellite manufacturer, but also CFOs, chief financial officer, was needed for one of the main OEM manufacturers here in Europe. So it's at all levels. They kept on hiring people, and the need is definitely there. The other thing I wanted to mention is, or another segment within aerospace or aviation that has not been having a difficult 2020 and 2021, is the private or business aviation side of things. It's basically it's one of those areas that have been doing really well, growth all around the place, and also the Embraers of the world, and the Learjets, and these smaller OEMs, the smaller manufacturers who are targeting markets which are essentially internal, like Chinese internal market, US market, these 60 to 100, 150 people sort of aircraft. So there are pockets of activity. You just really need to, again, do the research, talk to people, and have this really proactive approach to this. And yeah, I think that's the way to, or key to success. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. That's interesting that some of those are quite new parts of the defence domain.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got a couple more questions, and I might jump in with I think a potentially difficult one at the end. So Winston's got another question regarding security clearances. If you want to jump in, Winston.
So basically, for me, who just finished a master's in aerospace engineering, it's been really difficult to get into this sector. I tried a few times to get volunteer positions in a couple of aerospace industry, but they kept giving me this excuse that because of COVID, they were trying to retrench staff and all of that. So even in the course of applying for jobs, you get to see aerospace jobs and defense jobs that they tell you need to get security clearances and all of that. I want to know what areas of these companies that require these security clearances that we can get into that might not really need us to get the security clearances. I don't know if, like, for people, companies like, I don't know which one to mention now, quite a lot of them are into defense. How do we get into companies like this, even if it's to volunteer, considering that we are just new people in the industry?
Yeah. That's one of the potential issues with the defense industry, that is quite burdensome. You have to apply for this, and I mean, when it comes to the type of roles where you need these clearances, it's typically the any kind of engineering role, obviously, any kind of operations role. I think for most of the, unfortunately, even most of the office based roles simply because of the nature of the work. I mean, you're privy to confident, to in some cases state secrets, and even interns, even temporary staff, even freelancers, even consultants need to go through this is one of the disadvantages of doing that. But don't let that deter you, because if they need you to do that, organizations will give you all the documentation and all the support that that you need to get to actually pass those hurdles or hoops that you need to jump through. So it takes time, because you really need to, I mean, these are police matters, but even for internships, Winston, I think that's the issue, that even for internships, very often they require those. But again, it's not something that you need to sort out on your own. You get help. If they want to get you in, they will make sure that you get the clearances. Basically, that's how it works. In fact, without their help, it's impossible to get them. So.
Thank you very much.
So have you found that, like, in terms of things like security clearances, things like that, the newer industry players is less of an issue compared to sort of the older Airbuses, Lockheeds, things like that? Or is it just generally across the aviation sector, there's always that because of the relationship with defense, that's just a very common thing all the way across?
It really depends, because if you want a job with an airline, obviously, if it's in operations, if it's at an airport, obviously you have to go through it as well. Defense is particularly problematic, because again, you're dealing with very sensitive information. Even if you're an intern, you will be privy to a lot of stuff that you shouldn't ordinarily, or you wouldn't ordinarily be. Even smaller organizations, it's if you're involved with defense, you will have to do it. It's not only a Boeing or an Airbus or whatever have you do this. It's unfortunately it's a standard practice. If you're working for a consultancy, for example, that you're not part of an organization that actually does the product or does the manufacturing of the product, maybe then you can get away with it. But it's if you're working for an OEM in this space, like an original equipment manufacturer, there's no way around it, unfortunately. But again, this alone should not be something that would deter me to apply. Basically, this is a formality very often. If you've got nothing to hide or no skeleton in the closet, then it's not an issue.
Fantastic. Is it okay if we jump in with just one last question? It might be a bit of a I'm not sure if there's an answer to this one, yeah. But so I'm looking at a study from the Oxford Centre for Social Investigation. There's also one as well from the London School of Economics, yeah, in regards to aspects of CV bias, and there was a job discrimination based on people's names, and there's a kind of a prioritization in terms of CV responses on names, where if you've got Western European or an American name, you're effectively given a preference. But as you sort of work through sort of like different regions, MENA, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Ethiopia, like South American, Caribbean, the preference goes down each time based on your name, effectively, with identical CVs. And I wonder if there's any way to counter this, but I'm not sure if that's really something that it's easy to do without, having a different name, and then you don't actually know whether that's going to make any difference in the interview itself. But yeah, sorry, that's
yeah, it's something that is happening. I mean, we can't deny it. Unfortunately, it really depends on the organization. Quite a number of aviation players started to implement a blind CV approach where you don't see an individual's name, you don't see an individual's education as well, because you can really disadvantage an applicant based on just that, where you went to school, what country you were born in, things like that. I don't suggest that you include too many personal information as well. I think your name, your email address, your phone number, your LinkedIn URL, that's all you need on a CV. There's no need to put your address there. It's no one's business what your physical address is, where you live, where you're based. If they need to know, they will ask you at a later stage in the process. But I think probably the best way to get around it is include as little information, like personal information, as you can. Obviously, if they want you to include your name, you have to. There's no way around it. It is a practice, very bad practice. There's an awful lot of bias going on across the sector, gender bias, whatever bias that you can think of, and very often unconsciously. There's such thing as an unconscious bias. You don't even think that you're being, you're like putting someone in a disadvantaged position, but you are still doing it. It's there's no clear cut. You're right. There's no clear cut answer to this. It's it doesn't help that the industry, especially the airline industry or the aviation industry, is also a very heavily male-dominated industry. So very often, if it's a female, then it's immediately like, yeah, it's viewed in a different light. So a lot is being done about it. IATA is having a wonderful initiative, like 25 by 2025, increasing the number of people in leadership position, like number of women in leadership position as well within airlines. But it's still quite slow. Really depends on the organization that you are looking at. But that's clearly a very, very bad practice that is undeniably happening not only in aerospace, but in other industries as well, basically, and needs to be addressed and tackled. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Yeah, no, that's something I've been thinking about a bit, where there's been a move for companies to have more minority representation, more representation of women, but in terms of like have their processes adapted to allow that, and have they adapted to response to unconscious bias? Because even very recent studies, 2019, 2018, yeah, they show that it's still pretty rife in the UK, and it's almost equivalent to that of like things like the United States, and then the UK kind of has a bit of a blind spot regarding this. Yeah. But yeah, no, thanks. That's really interesting kind of thing of it. I think there's a tendency to try and give as much information as possible, but if it doesn't serve you, then there's no need to. Excellent.
Yeah, especially with names, it's something that it's unavoidable, really. I mean, they need to be able to address you in some way. So it's but would certainly not go into any other details around anything personal. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Probably going to end it there because we're sort of coming up with time. Bernard needs to do a quick announcement at the end, but I just want to say just a huge thanks. It's been like really eye-opening, really interesting, just sort of taking us through a lot of these areas that are extremely relevant kind of thing. That it's that kind of we talk a lot about these kind of very technical exploits, various activities, but fundamentally at an individual level, unless you can sort of get in through the door, that's effectively it's not accessible to you. So this kind of stuff is if you want to be doing the the incredible stuff and you read the interesting things that we talk about every month, this is effectively the first hurdle that you need to get over. So I think that it's extremely useful. I've taken a lot away from it, and I hope everyone else has. So just thank you very much, and just if everyone could sort of give a vote of thanks, that would be fantastic.
No, thank you for the opportunity, and I hope it has been useful. And in case anyone has any questions that you didn't ask, my contact details are basically, I mean, I'm available, can have a chat, answer anything that you that we didn't discuss or you didn't want to raise in front of the group, basically. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll pass it over to Bernard. He's got a quick message to
Just a
the
quick
end,
question,
and then,
please.
oh yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, with regards to this presentation we just saw, is it possible for us to get in our emails, or it's not possible?
Okay.
Did you get me?
So is it possible to get a copy of this presentation?
Yeah, of course, that's not an issue at all. I've spotted a typo. I will make a change and then I will send it over to you. Then basically it can be, yeah, of course, can be used. Again, any questions, let me know. Very happy to chat. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're very welcome, and hope it has been useful and you've learned something that you didn't know until tonight.
Cool.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll pass it over to Bernard now.
Thanks very much, Dan. And so I have the unfortunate duty of reporting that Sir John Charnley, our named lecturer, has passed away. So Sir John passed away peacefully in his sleep on Tuesday, the 28th of September 2021, at the age of 99. Sir John was an aeronautical engineer and began his career as a researcher at the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Farnborough, where he was assigned to work on testing Britain's first jet aircraft, the Gloucester Whittle E-2839. He was, and as a result, became an expert in high-speed flight, but then was later asked to lead the Royal Aircraft Establishment Blind Landing Experimental Unit. And that work crucially led to the autoland systems used to help aircraft land safely in bad weather, which are in use and have allowed us to have a high degree of autonomy today. He later moved to managerial roles within the Ministry of Technology and the Ministry of Defence, where his posts included Chief Scientist of the Royal Air Force and Controller of Research Establishments in the MOD. And following his retirement from the civil service, he served on the board of several firms and organisations. So Sir John was an immensely, we talked about gravitas earlier, it was a figure with immense gravitas in the aviation and aerospace industry and sector. The branch responded to Sir John's family at the notification of his passing away. If anyone wishes to send their condolences personally, Neil Stokes can help with that. The branch committee are also considering ways to commemorate his life and exploits, including we're investigating the possibility of getting an aeronautical heritage plaque for him. So with that sad news, I wish to conclude this lecture of the Bedford branch.
Oh, thank you very much, Bernard. And we'll share that information on our social media as well. So brilliant. I think unless anyone's got any more questions, I think that's it for this evening. And thank you very much for coming along. Thank you very much, Arpad, for a very enlightening presentation that has excellent practical usage. So that's often a rare thing. We don't very often get something that you can practically apply yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you again. Thank you.